Hey everyone, welcome back. We're diving into a topic today that you guys have been asking about a lot.
Yeah.
Political participation.
Yeah, big one.
And, we've got this chapter here from a political science book that we're going to use as our guide today.
A good one.
It is. It's dense, though.
It is.
So we're going to try and break it down, make it make sense for the average person who's not a political scientist.
Exactly.
And it's really all about, how your voice can be heard in a democracy, right? How do you actually make a difference when it feels like these big systems are just
chugging along.
Yeah, chugging along, no matter what you do.
Yeah, and this chapter really emphasizes that it's not a set it and forget it system.
Right.
You got to nurture it.
Yeah.
Like a plant.
Yeah.
You got to tend to it.
I like that. So we need to figure out how to keep this plant healthy.
Exactly.
And thriving. So to start, what does political participation actually even mean? I hear that phrase all the time, but
it is a broad term.
Yeah.
It's kind of vague.
It is.
But basically, any action that citizens take to influence what the government does,
got it,
to have their voice heard.
Okay.
It could be voting, joining political parties, going to demonstrations.
Okay, so more active.
More active.
Even running for office yourself.
That's a big one.
Yeah, so it's way more than just voting every few years, right? It's a whole
spectrum
of involvement.
So even if I'm just signing those online petitions.
Yes.
Does that count?
Absolutely. Okay. You're adding your voice to a collective call.
Right.
You're engaging with the system.
Okay. That's encouraging to hear. So even small things, can kind of...
Can add up.
Yeah, add up, make a difference.
Big impact. Okay, but what if I want to do more, right? Step up my game. What are some ways, besides the petitions?
So think of it like a toolbox, right?
Toolbox.
Different tools for different jobs.
What a good analogy.
You've got your hammer voting. That's the essential foundation.
Got it.
Then you have joining a political party, campaigning.
Oh.
Those are your power drills.
Amp it up.
Amplifying your efforts.
Okay.
And then demonstrations and protests.
Okay.
Those are your sledgehammers, breaking down walls.
Wow. So I got to pick my tool based on what I'm trying to do and how much effort I'm ready to put in.
Exactly. It's not about finding the one right way.
Okay.
It's about finding what feels authentic to you.
Right.
And using it to make your voice heard.
I like that. That's good. This is making me think about all the times I've been frustrated, with stuff the government's doing. And I just complained about it to my friends, over dinner, but never actually did anything.
It's a common feeling.
Is it?
Yeah. But remember, democracy gives you the power to channel that frustration to action.
So I can actually do something.
You can.
Yeah.
And the more people who do that,
the
more responsive the system becomes.
Okay, so I got to organize my toolbox, figure out what tools I'm going to use.
Exactly.
But, we keep saying democracy like it's this one big thing.
It's an umbrella term.
It is, right? Aren't there, different types of democracies?
There are different models of democracy.
Models. Okay, this is getting...
Each with its own.
Interesting. Models, those little model airplanes?
Yeah. Blueprints.
Blueprints, okay.
But for how the government's...
Yeah, citizen involvement plays out.
Okay, so before we even get into the models, what's the goal here? What are we even aiming for?
The source uses this term.
Okay.
Good governance.
Good governance, okay.
What does a well-functioning democracy actually look like? Okay, so good governance.
Right.
To me, that sounds like a government that's efficient.
Right.
Effective,
Not just bogged down.
Yeah, not just stuck
in bureaucracy.
In bureaucracy, right?
And transparent.
Yes. So we can see what's going on.
Exactly. The source really emphasizes that good governance is about a government that's accountable
to the people,
to its citizens.
Right.
It's about ensuring policies are effective, resources are used responsibly, and citizens have a voice.
Okay, so it's not just about having elections.
Right.
It's about making sure that the government is actually
serving the people.
Serving the people, and being open and honest.
And operating in a way.
So it makes sense.
That's open and honest.
Okay, so how did these models, how do they fit into all this?
Well, each model represents a different approach to achieving that.
To achieving that good governance.
Exactly.
Okay, I am so ready to dive into these models.
Let's do it.
Let's go.
All right, so we're back and ready to dig into those models of democracy.
Yeah, like those blueprints we were talking about.
Exactly, like different ways to structure things.
To reach that good governance.
Yeah, to get to that ideal.
Okay, so which one are we starting with?
Let's begin with one you might recognize, neoliberal democracy.
Neoliberal, okay.
It's pretty common in a lot of Western societies.
Like the U.S.?
Exactly. The U.S. is a prime example.
Okay, so that's the one where it's all about, like, individual freedom, right?
You got it. Individual freedom is key here.
Limited government, free markets, all that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The government's role is more hands-off.
Like a referee.
Yes. Making sure everyone plays fair.
But not getting too involved.
Right. Just setting the basic rules.
Okay, so where's political participation fit in with this if the government's not supposed to be super involved?
Good question. In this model,
Okay.
participation is more of an individual choice.
So it's not like the government's pushing you to get involved.
Not necessarily, no.
It's more like you do it if you want to.
Right. It's about making your voice heard.
Through things like voting, I guess.
Voting, lobbying,
Lobbying, okay.
even starting your own business.
Oh, interesting. So you're kind of like creating your own opportunities.
Yeah, it's about taking initiative.
Okay. I can see how that could be empowering. You know, you're not waiting for the government to do things for you.
Exactly. You're taking charge.
But it also seems like it could be challenging.
It can be.
Like, not everyone has the same resources.
That's one of the critiques of this model.
Right. Like, if you're super rich and you want to influence a politician.
Right. You can just donate a ton of money.
And suddenly your voice is louder.
Exactly. That's the issue of campaign finance.
That makes sense. So it's not a perfect system, obviously.
No system is perfect.
But it does have its strengths.
It does. Like that focus on individual freedom.
Right. That's definitely appealing to a lot of people.
It is, for sure.
So what about some of these other models? Are there any that try to address those inequalities more directly?
Absolutely. Let's take a look at the communitarian model.
The communitarian model.
Yeah, this one's often associated with Scandinavian countries.
Like Denmark, Sweden, all those places that always rank high for happiness.
Exactly. They're doing something right.
So what's their secret? What's different about their approach?
Well, the communitarian model really prioritizes the well-being of the whole community.
Not just individuals.
Right. It's about social solidarity.
So it's more like, we're all in this together.
Exactly. It's about supporting each other.
Okay, that sounds pretty nice.
It does, right.
But doesn't that mean the government has to be pretty involved?
It does, yes.
Like providing healthcare, education, all those things.
Exactly. Think of it like a safety net.
Okay, a safety net to catch people if they fall.
Exactly. So everyone has a basic level of support.
That makes sense, but doesn't that also mean higher taxes?
It can, yes.
So you're giving up some of your individual spending power.
You are, but the idea is that...
it benefits everyone in the long run.
Exactly. It's about investing in the collective good.
Like that rising tide lifts all boats saying.
Exactly. You're contributing to a system.
That supports everyone.
That's the goal.
Okay, I'm starting to see how these models reflect different values, right?
They do. Different priorities.
So you might prefer one model over another.
Depending on what you value most.
Exactly. So we've got neoliberal individual freedom and communitarian community well-being.
Right. Two very different approaches.
Is there a third option in this democracy model store?
There is. One that focuses on direct citizen involvement.
Okay, that sounds interesting.
It's called participatory democracy.
Participatory democracy. All right, so the people are really calling the shots here.
You got it. This model is all about empowering citizens.
Okay, so how does that actually work in the real world? Give me some examples.
Well, imagine a city where residents get to decide how part of the budget is spent.
Whoa, really? They get to choose?
Yep. That's called participatory budgeting.
Participatory budgeting, okay.
It's been done in places like Brazil.
Wow.
Even New York City.
So it's like a direct line from the people to how their tax dollars are used.
Exactly. It gives citizens real control.
I can see how that would make people feel more invested in their community.
Absolutely. It makes them active participants.
Okay, what else? What other examples are there?
Another one is citizen assemblies.
Citizen assemblies, what are those?
They're groups of randomly selected citizens.
Randomly selected.
Interesting.
Who come together to discuss policy issues.
So it's like a mini democracy.
Yeah, kind of. They hear from experts, debate different perspectives.
Wow, this is making me realize that maybe I've been thinking about democracy too narrowly.
It can be easy to do.
You know, just focusing on voting.
Right.
But there's so much more to it.
There is. These models show us.
Different ways to get involved.
And different ways to organize ourselves.
Okay, so we've got these three models: neoliberal, communitarian, and participatory.
Three distinct approaches.
Each with its own strengths and weaknesses.
Exactly. And remember here.
These models often blend and overlap.
So it's not like a country is just one model.
Right, it's more of a spectrum.
Okay, a spectrum.
Different countries lean in different directions.
Got it. So it's not about picking a winner.
No, it's about understanding the nuances.
And how different societies are approaching these big questions.
Exactly. Questions about power.
Participation.
And what it means to be a democracy.
Okay, so that brings us to a big question. What are those core features that define a democracy?
That's what we'll explore next.
Okay, I can't wait. Welcome back. We're ready to tackle those core features that make a system a true democracy.
Right, the fundamental building blocks.
No matter which model they're using.
The essential ingredients, you could say.
Okay, so what are those must-have elements?
Well, the source starts with this concept of popular sovereignty.
Popular sovereignty, huh? Sounds kind of fancy.
It is, but it boils down to a simple idea.
Okay, hit me with it.
The people are the ultimate source of power.
So it's not the government calling the shots.
Nope, not some king or queen either.
The power rests with the citizens.
Exactly. And how do they express that power?
I'm guessing through elections?
You got it. Free and fair elections.
Where citizens get to choose their representatives.
Right. It's not just about voting every few years, though.
It's about knowing your vote actually matters.
That it can make a real difference.
Right, like it can actually change who's in power.
Exactly. That's what gives elections legitimacy.
Okay, that makes sense.
And that leads us to another key feature. Representativeness.
Representativeness.
Okay, it means the government should reflect the diversity of its people.
So everyone should feel like they have a voice.
Right, their interests are represented.
Not just a select few.
Exactly. Everyone gets a say.
Okay, so it's not just about having elections, it's about making sure they're actually fair.
And that the people elected actually represent everyone.
Not just a small group.
Exactly. It's a system of equal representation.
Which ties into another principle, right? Majority rule, but with minority rights.
You got it. Decisions are often based on what most people want.
Right. Majority rules.
But you have to protect the rights of those who disagree.
So it's not like the majority just gets to steamroll everyone else.
Exactly. Everyone's voice matters, even if it's not the most popular one.
It's about finding that balance, right?
Exactly. Respecting the will of the majority.
While also protecting those who hold different views.
Exactly. Making sure everyone feels heard and protected.
Okay, that makes sense.
And let's not forget about the rule of law.
Yes, that's a big one. What does that look like in a democracy?
It means everyone is equal before the law.
So no one is above the law.
No one. No matter how rich, powerful, or connected you are.
So even the president has to follow the rules.
Everyone does.
Yeah.
It's about having a system that applies equally to all.
Right, and those laws aren't just made up on the fly, right?
No, they're established through a transparent process.
Involving elected officials.
Who are accountable to the people.
So there's a clear process, and everyone knows the rules of the game.
Exactly. And speaking of knowing the rules, that brings us to another crucial element. Transparency.
Transparency. We've talked about that a lot.
It's super important in a democracy.
Citizens need to know what their government is doing, right?
Absolutely. How decisions are being made, how resources are being used.
If you don't know what's going on behind the scenes, you can't really trust the system.
Exactly. Transparency builds trust between the government and the people.
And it goes hand in hand with accountability, right?
I got it. Those in power need to be held responsible for their actions.
So if they mess up or abuse their power,
there are mechanisms in place to address that.
So it's not just about leaders having power, it's about them being answerable to the people.
And the people having the information to hold them accountable.
Right, like a checks and balances kind of thing.
Exactly. All these elements work together.
It's to create a system where power is distributed and checked.
And where citizens have a real say in how things are run.
Wow, it really is like a puzzle.
It is. All these pieces fitting together.
Popular sovereignty, representativeness, rule of law, transparency, accountability.
They all have to be there to create a functioning democracy.
And it's not like any country has it perfectly figured out, right?
Right. It's a constant work in progress.
Each society is always trying to improve their system.
Adapting to new challenges, figuring out what works best.
So it's not about reaching some perfect endpoint.
It's about constantly striving to make things better.
More just, more equitable, more responsive to the people.
Exactly. And that's where you come in.
Me? What can I do?
By understanding these principles, by engaging in thoughtful dialogue,
okay,
and by taking action to hold your leaders accountable.
So by participating in the system,
you become part of that process of shaping and strengthening democracy.
Wow, that's actually really inspiring.
It is. Your voice matters, your actions matter.
Even small things can make a difference.
Absolutely. Whether you're voting, volunteering, contacting your representatives,
or even just talking to your friends and family about these issues.
It all contributes to the kind of democracy you want to live in.
This has been such an amazing deep dive. We started talking about political participation.
And ended up exploring the very foundation of democracy.
And the key takeaway for me is...
What's that?
My voice matters, my actions matter.
That's the heart of it. It's not about being perfect or having all the answers.
It's about showing up, being engaged, and using your voice.
To make a difference.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you're walking away with a better understanding of how democracies work.
And the power you have to shape them.
Remember, the future of democracy is in your hands.
Keep those voices strong. Keep making a difference.